My name is Madeline Scott, and I'm 34. 34 years of being the one who notices the cracks, fixes the leaks, and quietly carries the weight everyone else assumes will just hold itself up. I juggle a career in insurance, 2 kids, and the endless emergencies of a family that believes love is measured in favors, checks, and invisible debts. My children, Evan, 9, and Sophie, 6, are both wild and tender, balancing each other out like an impossible equation I've learned to solve. My ex-boyfriend, now just a co-parenting partner, and I share calendars, custody schedules, and the occasional exhausted smile when our worlds align. But at the center of every family storm has always been my parents, Carl and Marie, and my younger sister Jenna, who somehow always seems to take center stage, whether she deserves it or not. It was my father's 61st birthday, a sit-down restaurant with white tablecloths, the kind of menu where half the words need Googling. He had picked it, claiming, "You only turn 61 once." But we all knew it was Jenna, subtly coercing, that had guided his choice. Photos, likes, attention. She wanted a stage, and the world, our family, was the audience. We took a corner table, my kids and I, polite but tense. My parents, distant and critical. Jenna, gleaming like she owned the room, with her husband Chuck grinning at her every move. The waiter brought water glasses so heavy I almost flinched. The room smelled like butter and wine. Dad waved a hand. "Get whatever, it's a celebration." I scanned the menu in silence, the reflex of a lifetime kicking in. Mental math, the weight of dollars, the precision of numbers. Evan leaned over. "Can I have the pasta with the twirls?" "Pappardelle," I corrected gently. "We'll see, kiddo." Jenna waved the waiter over like she was conducting an orchestra. "2 truffle pastas, extra mushrooms, and the lemon cake to go," she said, tapping her nails on the phone I'd gifted her last Christmas because hers had accidentally cracked. When the food arrived, the first dish, crowned with shaved truffles, landed in front of Jenna. The second went to Chuck. Then came 2 elegant white boxes set precisely by their elbows. My kids stared. Sophie whispered, "Is one for us?" Jenna laughed, a high tinkling sound. "These are for the boys later." Her boys, who weren't even present, would get $72 worth of pasta and dessert, while my children, sitting right there, waited. Evan looked at me, confusion and hurt warring in his young eyes. That heat, the old familiar burn of invisibility, rose in my chest. And then Dad did the thing he always did when he tried to be funny and ended up cruel. He flicked 2 napkins at my children like playing cards. "Your kids can eat when they get home," he said, grinning. Chuck chuckled. "Next time, feed them first." I said nothing. I just nodded. The waiter returned to ask if we needed anything else. I stood up. My chair legs scraped against the floor, a harsh punctuation that cut through the polite din. All eyes turned to me. That was the first crack. I didn't become the responsible one on purpose. It happened like water finds the lowest point. In every crisis, the question was always, "Where's Madeline?" followed by, "She'll handle it." At 17, I was the driver who picked Jenna up at midnight because she couldn't call Mom. At 19, I wired $220 to my father when his debit card glitched 2 towns over. By 24, I had a tidy desk, dual monitors, and a calm, steady voice to reassure clients whose lives had fallen apart. Jenna? She learned something too. If she framed an issue as urgent and familial, I would always say yes. And that's how it went. My parents measured my worth in invisible debts. The bills I covered, the deposits I fronted, the favors no one acknowledged. Every time I let one brick of responsibility go down, another landed on my shoulders. Weddings, births, emergencies. My life was a ledger, and I was the accountant who never signed off. By the time Sophie arrived, my marriage had already started wobbling under the weight of all these invisible numbers. Not because of my love for my kids, but because I had learned too young to put others first, to make sacrifices that went unnoticed. My ex, Aaron, would plead, "Can we have one evening where it's just us?" I would answer, almost without thinking, "It's family," like that was a spell. But it wasn't. It was a wedge. Money had become the language of love in our household. My parents praised me for covering checks because I earned more than teachers. Jenna relished the deposits I fronted without a return date. Mom loved telling relatives about how Madeline was doing well, citing the washer, the iPad, the weekend cabin, and I paid for all of it because peace was cheaper than confrontation. But it wasn't cheap. It cost my marriage. It cost my self-respect. Now, 2 years post-divorce, the separation was clean on paper. No affairs, no dramatic secrets, just the erosion of my life to sustain everyone else's. Custody was split, calendars synchronized, civil appearances maintained. And yet, here we were, at Dad's birthday, and the old dynamics were rearing their heads again. The truffle pastas, the lemon cake. The napkins flicked like a message. Your kids come second. I inhaled slowly, centering myself. When the waiter returned, I asked, quietly but firmly, could we split the checks by household? One for my parents, one for Jenna and Chuck, one for me and my kids. My voice was calm, almost boring. A professional tone refined over decades of crisis management. Jenna blinked. What? Dad laughed. Sit down, bud. We'll handle it later. No, I said. We'll handle it now. The table fell silent. Sophie looked at me, unsure. Evan's small hand gripped mine. I caught the old familiar sensation. Fear, yes, but also resolve. The waiter nodded, understanding the stakes. Of course, I can itemize. Thank you, I said, handing over my card. 2 kids' pastas as well. Plain butter, nothing fancy. Dad's palm slammed lightly on the table. Authority, thinly veiled as humor. I'm not telling you how to spend your money, I said. I'm telling you how I will spend mine. Mom tried soft, but her voice faltered. Madeline, honey, be reasonable. I am reasonable, I said. Reasonable is not paying for everyone and being told my children can eat later. Jenna rolled her eyes. It's just pasta. It's respect, I said. And in that moment, a subtle shift occurred. The old patterns, the invisible accounting, the expectation that I would absorb everything without protest. It was breaking. I was finally making a line, not with anger, but with clarity. The kids smiled, relief flickering across their faces, sensing something new. Their mother had boundaries. And I knew, as I sat back down to eat my plain butter pasta with Evan and Sophie, that this night, my father's birthday, Jenna's theatrics, Chuck's grin, would mark the beginning of a different story. One where I was no longer invisible. The night air outside the restaurant was sharp, almost electric, as if it had been waiting for me to take a stand. I held Evan's small hand in mine and helped Sophie into her jacket. My kids didn't ask questions. They didn't have to. They understood that something had shifted, something quiet but permanent. As we drove home, Sophie swung her legs like she was measuring the distance to a new world. Are we in trouble? She asked. No, I said. We're in a new story. A story where I wasn't invisible, where my voice carried weight, and my children didn't have to compete for crumbs of attention. Sunday morning arrived, quiet and ordinary, but in a way that felt revolutionary. 32 texts, 18 missed calls, 11 voicemails, all from my parents and Jenna. The family group chat had exploded overnight. I didn't answer right away. I made pancakes. Evan measured flour with the seriousness of a bomb technician. Sophie whisked, giggling at the flour dusting her nose. The house felt different, not safer, not perfect, but honest. At 10:17 a.m., my phone rang. Mom. Madeline, she said without hello, your father didn't sleep. I did, I said. You humiliated him. I split a check, I reminded her. You made a scene. I set a boundary. She inhaled, long and practiced. You've always loved making everything about you. I glanced at Evan, kneading the pancake dough with delicate care, and Sophie, counting blueberries into the batter. Last night wasn't about me, I said. It was about my kids. They weren't hungry. She shifted tactics. You know your sister struggles. Chuck's job is unstable. So is everyone's. You're not being a family player. I breathed deeply, counting in 4s. I'm not their employer. Family helps family, but family respects family. There was a pause. She tried soft, coaxing. Your father wants you to apologize. I won't, I said. Silence hung like a fog. And neither do you. The call ended. I let the silence settle, listening to Evan hum a little song, Sophie's fork tapping the bowl. My home was calm in a way I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. Every no I uttered, every boundary I held, built walls where there used to be revolving doors. Later that afternoon, a new problem arrived like clockwork. A text from Dale at Mid-Count Towing. Honda Civic on hold. Jennifer Hale listed as secondary. Please call. I ignored it. My family's old life, their expectations, the invisible ledger, they'd been knocking for decades. Not this time. By Wednesday, the extended family weighed in. Aunt Trish texted, "I always thought you were a good girl." Uncle Marco called, ranting about disrespect and outdated values. Cousin Lily sent a single word, proud. I saved that one. Boundary maintenance wasn't glamorous. I audited subscriptions, removed old credit cards, canceled joint accounts. Hulu, Disney Plus, Spotify. Every tiny tether that gave them access to my life was severed. 2 years of erosion had taught me the value of small, consistent acts of protection. Friday brought the family text. Family meeting, Sunday, noon, no excuses. I stared at it, long and unblinking. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. No. No became my mantra. No more being the invisible adult, the safety net. No more absorbing slights and debt without acknowledgement. Saturday, we did something small and huge. I took Evan and Sophie to the park with sandwiches and apples. No errands, no schedules, just laughter that echoed between swings and slides. Evan attempted the monkey bars with fierce determination. Sophie tripped and laughed so hard she forgot to cry. My phone stayed face down, forgotten in my pocket. I had no calendar to obey, no parental demands hovering like specters. The world didn't end. Nobody yelled. Nobody demanded my wallet. It was ordinary, mundane even, yet revolutionary. Sunday morning, a call I hadn't expected. Grandma Joan, 84, the family matriarch who had weathered storms I couldn't imagine. "You made your grandfather do this once," she said. "He told his brothers, no more borrowing tools. They never returned, and he slept better after." I laughed softly. "You've always liked me better. I always saw things clearer." "Eat, sleep, keep going," she said. A simple directive, but full of wisdom. By Monday, the message had changed. Mom texted, "Less rage, more negotiation." Jenna wrote separately, requesting a small sum for school pictures. I ignored her. Tuesday night at 11:43 p.m., the doorbell rang. I watched Dad's face on the Ring camera, red-cheeked, jaw set, every bit the authority figure I'd defied. He knocked. I stayed inside. "You want to be alone? Fine, be alone." He walked away. The porch light clicked off. For the first time in months, I slept deeply, dreaming of a quiet room where nobody demanded my attention, my money, my constant compromise. The following week, things didn't stop completely, but they became quieter. Every no I held built a structure of protection around my children. I watched Evan ask carefully, "Are we still going to Grandpa's on Sundays?" "Not for a little while," I said. He nodded thoughtfully. Sophie asked hesitantly, "Do they hate us?" "No," I said. "They're just learning our rules." "And what are our rules?" I said them aloud. "We eat when we're hungry. We say please and thank you. We don't make people small to make ourselves big. We don't buy cake for people who aren't at the table while telling people at the table to wait." Sophie grinned. "So we buy cake for us?" "Yes," I said. Closure looks ordinary. Pancakes on Sunday, homework on Tuesday, soccer on Thursday. No dramatics, no calculated favors, just presence, just respect, just love that doesn't cost my children their dignity. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was building something small, mine, and fiercely protected. Monday morning arrived like a quiet test. Evan was brushing his teeth, his small face scrunched in concentration. Sophie stacked her crayons in a perfect tower, humming to herself. I sipped my coffee, letting the steam fog my glasses. My phone vibrated. A text from Jenna. "Can you send $60 for the school picture add-ons?" I stared at it. My thumb hovered. Then slowly I typed, "No." The silence afterward felt heavier than any argument. It was the sound of a line drawn in the sand, a boundary that couldn't be crossed with a text or a demand. The day passed in quiet routines. Evan practiced spelling words while Sophie finger-painted at the kitchen table. I watched them, noticing every small gesture, the way Sophie's tongue peeked from her mouth when she concentrated, the way Evan tapped his pencil twice before writing a letter. Ordinary moments, yet precious. By mid-afternoon, a call from Dad came through. His voice, strained with a mixture of authority and frustration, echoed over the speakerphone. "Madeline, you embarrassed your family. You need to apologize. Now." I took a deep breath. "Dad, I set a boundary. That's all. I didn't embarrass anyone. I protected my kids." There was a long pause, then quieter. "You think you're better than us." "No," I said, steady. I'm done being used as a safety net. I'm not a charity or a messenger. I'm their mother." He hung up. The line clicked dead. For a moment, I thought I'd feel guilt. I didn't. I felt resolve, a clarity I hadn't known I was capable of. By evening, Jenna arrived unexpectedly. Sophie had left her crayons on the table, Evan was finishing homework, and I was packing backpacks for tomorrow. Jenna's eyes were wide, her posture casual, but there was tension in her smile. "Hi," she said, slipping past the doorway like she owned the air. "Hi," I answered, calm. My voice carried authority. "Did you call first?" "I didn't think it mattered," she said, setting a small tote bag on the counter. "I just thought I'd drop by for the kids." I followed her gaze to Evan and Sophie. They looked up, curious but cautious. I felt the weight of responsibility in the moment. "We don't do drop-ins," I said. Jenna blinked, processing the rebuke. "Right, okay." I handed her the bags we'd prepared for school, neatly labeled and ready. "If you want them, you ask, not show up." Her lips pressed together, eyes flicking to mine. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I recognized it, the practiced smile of someone used to sliding past consequences. Dinner passed quietly, punctuated by Sophie's questions about her favorite storybook, Evan's insistence on spelling every word correctly, and Jenna's occasional sideways glance, as if testing boundaries she didn't understand fully yet. After she left, Evan turned to me. "Mom, will she be mad at you?" I shook my head. "She'll adjust. We're just learning new rules." Sophie nodded sagely, as if my words were a charm. "Rules are good," she said. The night stretched long and still. I sat at the kitchen table, writing lists and notes, auditing subscriptions, double-checking that old accounts couldn't interfere with our lives anymore. It was exhausting work, meticulous and lonely, but necessary. Every check I crossed off was a small victory, a reassurance that my family would be protected from the chaos I had endured for years. Thursday brought the first real test of patience. Evan's soccer practice ran late, and Sophie had a school performance rehearsal. I drove back and forth across town, juggling schedules, snacks, and small acts of calm in the face of growing tension. The phone buzzed incessantly. Texts from Dad, messages from Jenna, a string of demands and reminders disguised as casual updates. I ignored them. I focused on the kids. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. I felt a rising heat, a memory of decades of acquiescence and silent compromise. I wouldn't give that up again. Friday, a text from Dad. "You need to come by. Family first." I typed back simply, "Family first is when respect is mutual. We'll be fine here." The response never came. That night, I found myself reviewing the week, replaying moments in my mind, the restaurant, the park, the quiet triumph of saying no. My chest ached with exhaustion, but a strange calm had settled over me. I could breathe, really breathe, without feeling like I owed someone compliance or submission. Evan and Sophie slept soundly. I watched them, their small forms curled in the blankets. The weight of parental responsibility felt different now, not a chain, but a shield. Then came a quiet knock on the door. My heart tightened. It was Grandma Joan, holding a small plate of cookies. "I thought these might help," she said. Her eyes twinkled, full of wisdom. "You're doing the right thing. Every no is a yes for them." I smiled, relief washing over me. I realized she understood the truth I had just begun to accept. Boundaries weren't punishments, they were protection. They were love in its purest, most stubborn form. By Saturday, the rhythm had begun to settle. Pancakes on Sunday, homework on Tuesday, soccer Thursday, boundaries established, respect earned, love given freely without expectation or debt. I watched Evan score his first goal of the season and Sophie color outside the lines without complaint, and I felt something rare, pride without guilt. The old life, the incessant demands, the invisible scorekeeping, it was still out there, lurking. But for the first time, I felt untethered. I was no longer the person who would bend, yield, or pay without acknowledgement. I was Madeline Scott, mother, protector, architect of a small, fiercely guarded world. And in that moment, the future, messy and uncertain, felt like something I could finally navigate on my own terms. The following week felt like walking a tightrope over a canyon. Every phone buzz made my stomach knot, but I refused to look at messages from Dad or Jenna unless absolutely necessary. Evan and Sophie sensed the change in me. They were calmer, more playful, like the weight of adult tensions had lifted from their small shoulders. Thursday evening, After soccer practice, I returned home to find an unexpected letter slipped under the door. My name was scrawled in familiar handwriting. Dad's. I hesitated, a cold dread settling in my chest. I tore it open. Madeline, you think you've won. But family is more than boundaries. You'll regret this defiance. Consider this a warning. I dropped the envelope on the counter. Evan peeked over my shoulder. Mom, is that from Grandpa? I smiled tightly. Yes, honey, it's just words. Words can't hurt us if we don't let them. That night, sleep came reluctantly. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every confrontation, every subtle jab, every demand I'd endured over decades. The sense of being controlled, of owing everyone compliance, pressed like a vice on my chest. I refused to yield again, not for Dad, not for Jenna, not for anyone. Friday morning, I discovered something else. My online accounts, Netflix, Hulu, even our music subscriptions, had been tampered with. Passwords changed, purchases altered. Someone was testing boundaries, trying to see how far they could push me before I broke. I sat at my kitchen table, Evan and Sophie at breakfast, and my hands trembled slightly as I restored everything. We're not letting anyone control us, okay? I said. They nodded solemnly, a silent pact forming across the table. By Saturday, the tension broke in a new, unexpected way. Evan's teacher called. Madeline, I need to speak with you about a problem with your sister-in-law, she said, referring to Jenna. My pulse quickened. She's influencing Evan, making him feel guilty for spending time at home. It's subtle, but it's affecting him. I hung up and felt a rage simmer beneath my skin. All the sacrifices, the quiet labor of keeping my children safe, and now she was trying to manipulate them through guilt? I clenched my fists and went for a run, letting the anger burn through me. Later that day, Jenna showed up at our front door unannounced. Sophie squealed in delight, running to greet her aunt, while Evan hesitated. I stepped forward, calm but firm. You need to leave, I said. We don't do drop-ins. She tilted her head, smiling like she was untouchable. I just wanted to see the kids, she said, casual, too casual. I said no, I replied, my voice firmer this time. If you want to see them, you call and ask, not just show up. Her eyes narrowed for a fraction of a second, then she masked it with a shrug. Fine, I'll call, but don't think this changes anything. Grandpa agrees with me. You're isolating the kids. I didn't flinch. No, I'm keeping them safe. You're free to do whatever, but the children follow our rules in this house. That's final. After she left, Evan and Sophie clung to me, quiet but perceptive. Mom, are we in trouble again? Evan whispered. I hugged them both tightly. No, baby. We're learning how to protect ourselves. Sunday morning arrived, crisp and clear. I packed a picnic for the park, determined to reclaim our space of peace. As we walked, Evan skipped ahead, Sophie twirling in her path, the sunlight catching in her hair. The simple joy made me ache. It was so small, yet so profound after months of tension. But the peace was fragile. My phone buzzed again, a text from Dad. Family meeting, Sunday noon, no excuses. I stared at it, then dropped the phone into my bag. Silence. The world didn't end. The sky stayed where it was. We laid out blankets, unpacked sandwiches and apples, and let the children play. For hours, no one intruded, no one demanded, no one threatened. Evan swung on the monkey bars. Sophie laughed as she climbed the slide. I watched, letting the warmth of their laughter fill the cracks that the family had left in me over the years. By afternoon, I realized something critical. The world outside could still push, manipulate, demand. But in this small universe I created, I had the power to protect, to guide, to love without compromise. I was no longer the background character in a drama authored by others. I was the lead in my own story. Later, as the sun dipped low, Grandma Joan appeared again, a small smile on her face. You're doing it, Madeline, she said softly. You're choosing them over the noise. That's bravery. I nodded, a lump in my throat. It doesn't feel brave. It feels necessary. She reached over, resting a hand on my shoulder. Necessary is brave enough. The ride home was quiet. Evan and Sophie napped in the back seat, their hands tangled in the seatbelt. I drove slowly, savoring the ordinary rhythm. The old threats, the old manipulations, they were still out there. But I had learned something invaluable. Boundaries weren't cruelty. They were survival. They were love in its purest form. And in that knowledge, I finally felt untouchable. Monday morning, the weight of Sunday's peace lingered like sunlight through blinds. I brewed coffee, listening to the quiet hum of the house. Evan and Sophie were still asleep, sprawled across their beds, a rare moment of uninterrupted calm. I let it last, knowing it would not be long before the outside world intruded again. The phone buzzed. Another group text from Dad and Jenna. My finger hovered over the screen. I could respond. I could argue. I could retreat. Instead, I ignored it. I had already decided my children's peace outweighed anyone else's demands. By mid-morning, Erin, my ex, dropped by to return some paperwork and check on the kids. Her eyes softened when she saw them laughing over a board game. They're thriving, she said quietly, nodding to me. You've done well, Madeline. They feel safe. I smiled faintly, a weight lifting. It's about consistency, I said. Boundaries, structure, love without compromise. Erin hesitated. I've never seen you so firm. It's impressive. I shrugged. It's exhausting, but worth it. The rest of the week was quieter than I expected. Messages from Dad went unanswered. Jenna sent a string of texts demanding explanations for every small decision I made. I typed responses in my head, then deleted them. My kids came first, always. The lesson was clear. Control is a choice, and I had chosen freedom. Thursday evening, Evan came to me, solemn. Mom, does Grandpa hate us? I knelt beside him, placing my hands on his shoulders. No, baby, they're learning too, just like we are. Sometimes people try to make themselves feel bigger by making others feel small, but that's not us. We don't do that. Sophie, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, nodded. We don't have to listen to mean words? Exactly, I said. We listen to truth, kindness, and love, nothing else. That weekend, Grandma Joan called again. Madeline, your father is quiet. He's reflecting. Keep your course. Your children will remember this moment. They will understand what it means to stand up for what's right. I exhaled, a quiet laugh escaping me. Thank you, Grandma. I needed that. By Sunday, the atmosphere in our home had transformed. We prepared pancakes, organized homework, played soccer in the yard. Evan and Sophie's laughter rang out freely, unburdened by family drama. I watched them, feeling a fierce, protective love unlike anything I had known before. Later, Evan asked, Mom, are we still going to Grandpa's for visits? I paused. Not for now. We'll go when it feels right. For now, this is our space, our rules. He nodded, understanding more than his years should allow. Sophie chimed in. Do they hate us? I smiled and shook my head. No, they're just learning how we do things now, and that's okay. That night, as I tucked them into bed, I reflected on the journey. Every slight, every expectation, every boundary pushed to the limit. It had led me here, not to bitterness, not to revenge, but to clarity. My children had a home where their needs came first, where respect was mutual, and where love was not transactional. I wrote in my journal later, my pen steady. Family isn't about yielding to demands. It's about protecting what matters. It's about teaching love, respect, and courage through example. I won't be a doormat. I won't be a wallet. I won't be anyone's punching bag. I will be their mother, their protector, and their guide. That is my choice, and I will not waver. Monday morning arrived, calm and ordinary. The phone lay silent. The world outside had not ended. The air smelled faintly of pancakes and sunlight. Evan asked carefully, Mom, are we still going to Grandpa's on Sundays? I said, Not for a little while. We'll choose the right moment. Sophie looked up with wide eyes. Do they hate us? No, I said firmly. We're just learning our own rules, and our rules are fair, loving, and safe. That's all that matters. That night, I kissed them both goodnight and sat alone in the living room. I realized that closure doesn't need fireworks or dramatic confrontations. It's quiet. It's ordinary. It's pancakes on Sunday, homework on Tuesday, soccer on Thursday. It's showing up for the people you love and letting go of the ones who demand your submission. Dad may still text, Jenna may still post online, but our story, the one that matters most, belongs to us now. And that is enough. I finally slept through the night, dreaming of quiet rooms and laughter unburdened by expectation. We don't buy love, we build it.